A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, inshallah, we'll have the question and answer sessions from Surah Al-KAHF. These are the questions which have been sent by members of the forum and some people which are not the members of the forum but are getting the daily dars individually. Exclusively, all the questions are related to the story of Hazrat Khidr alayhi salam and Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. And I have to admit that this story is one of the most contentious stories in the Quran, which has been interpreted and misinterpreted in many ways. So the first question, the boat incidents. Khidr alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam, they go on a boat. According to the hadith, the boat owners recognize Khidr alayhi salam, they let him on board and they do not charge him any money. And when they are about to disembark, he rips a plank in the boat and damages it. Later on, he explains to Khidr alayhi salam that he did that because there was a king who was going to confiscate all the boats which were seaworthy, and he wanted this boat to be saved. Because the owners of the boat are poor people, the word used for them is fakanat limasakina, and they are making a living by going to sea and ferrying people across the water. So it's an act of kindness which has two advantages. Number one, the king is not going to confiscate their boat. And the second thing is that they are going to be making more living because all the other boats are going to be confiscated. So inna ma'al usri yusran fa inna ma'al usri yusra. With every challenge and difficulty, Allah brings twice the ease. And the excellent question we've had is, what about the other boats and the owners of the other boats? Are they not going to suffer? Why did Allah not help them? So, the answer is in 3 steps. Number 1, why help these people and not the others? Well, these are poor people making a living at the sea. But they do not charge Khidr and Musa alayhi salam. So that shows they're kind. It's very difficult to be kind when you are poor. It's very difficult to be charitable when you are making ends meet and you're struggling to make ends meet. And when you are called a masakin in the Quran, that means you're really poor. None of the other boat owners, they offered free passage to Musa alayhi salam and Khidr alayhi salam. And these boat owners, they knew Khidr alayhi salam. So they also knew that he could not afford. And they took him on board, where the others did not do that. Now Allah Ta'ala says, Hal jaza al ihsana illa al ahsan. Ihsan in Arabic is not doing a favor. Ihsan in Arabic is doing the best possible deed. When you do something in the best possible way. So for a poor people who are running a boat and they're just making ends meet and they're short of cash themselves, they don't have a lot of earnings, for them to take someone on board and his friend and not to charge them money is ihsan. It is the best possible way of doing a good deed when you yourself are struggling to make ends meet. And the reward also would be the best possible way. So Allah singled them out with their boat to be saved from the king. That's the first part. Second part, what about the other people? Yes, Allah looks after everyone, but in different ways. They must have been compensated in some other way. It's not mentioned in the Quran how, but Allah Ta'ala would have compensated them in one way or another. Not only that, the king would also have been punished for taking those boats away from people by force. So he would also get his punishment in this world and the hereafter. The third thing is, how do we get the help of Allah? So we said with every difficulty, there's twice the ease. But how is this going to happen? The key to this getting twice the ease with every difficulty is perseverance, sabr. And if you give up and you fail to recognize the opportunities that arise in a difficulty, you would not be able to avail them. So if you become hopeless, which is iblisa, what the iblis does, then hopelessness makes us blind to the opportunities which Allah presents. It's very important to have sabr and be perseverant in these conditions, because Allah Ta'ala is going to bring you twice the opportunities in any situation of crisis. But you have to have your eyes open, you have to be on your guard to realize those opportunities. If the boat owners would give up and become hopeless and would not repair the boat, they would miss this opportunity of being the only boat in the water to ferry people across. And because they were believers and good people, they would have had perseverance and would have fixed the boat. If the same would have been done for other people, maybe they were not as good a believers as them, and they might have been totally hopeless and given up hope and said, oh, nothing can happen, never fix their boat, and then miss on the opportunity of making extra income when all the other boats are taken away. So Allah Ta'ala customizes the solutions and the help for every person in this world. This was a customized relief package for these people who were kind and considerate despite being very poor. Next question. Coming to Khidr Islam murdering the young boy. And the question is, why did Allah Ta'ala order Khidr Islam to murder the boy? Why didn't he make arrangements for him to be guided? And the answer is that he had already been given the guidance by Allah Ta'ala. We know it says in the ayah, فَكَانَ أَبَوَاهُ مُؤْمِنِينَ. The parents of this child, they were mu'mineen. They were the righteous people. And they would have brought him up properly. They would have given him love and care and a proper upbringing and proper guidance. So he was given a chance. And he did not avail it. Now, I would like to clarify one thing here. When we say ghulam or boy, it doesn't mean a child. It is probably someone who's in their teenagers. So he's a juvenile, as we say. Now, nowadays, the definition of juvenile is anyone below the age of 18. We don't know what the age of this child was and what was the definition of juvenile at that time. We do know that the word fatah is used for an old enough man who is able to make his own decisions, as it has been used in the start for the student of Musa alayhi salam. But this is a juvenile. He could be in his mid-teens or he could be towards the late teens. Now, we know with modern research that juvenile offenders and criminals, one of the most important factor for their crimes is the family environment, along with social choices and peer influence. But the most important factor is that they have a negative family environment. This child had a very positive family environment, and still he was hell-bent on doing extremely wrong things. The word used here is yurhikahuma. He was going to oppress his parents. And this is a translation by many of the translators. For example, Dr. Ghali, Taqiyuddin al-Hilali, Mohsin Khan, Muhammad Marmaduke, William Pickthall, very famous translation, Ali Unal, Talal Itani, Saifur Rahman al-Mubarak Puri, all of them has said it is oppression, severe oppression of his parents. So we are seeing the development of a sociopath, which some people call psychopath, despite the best environment and upbringing available to him. Secondly, why kill the child? Remember, qital by a prophet is actually azab from Allah. All over in the history of Islam and in Quran, you see this. Whenever Allah Ta'ala is ordering a prophet to do qital, it is actually azab. And what is the basic condition for azab? Surah Hud, ayat number 117. وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ لِيُخْلِقَ الْقُرْآ بِالظُّلْمِ وَأَهْلُهَا مُصْلِحُونَ. For never would your sustainer destroy a community for their zulm, wrong belief, so long as its people behave righteously towards one another. So the punishment from Allah for this boy only came when he had exhausted all the guidance available to him and he was committing some sort of tyranny to the fellow human beings. Which brings us to the next question. Question number 3. How can one be punished for a crime which has not been committed? You can punish someone for a crime in the past or present, but not in the future. Excellent question. Very good and valid question. And as in Surah Hud, ayat number 117, we have seen that Allah is not going to send his azab, not going to punish people unless they cross a red line. Now, he must have crossed a red line. We are not told what he has done before. And I'll tell you why we are not told what he's done before. But we are only told what he was going to do next. And the next thing was really bad, oppressing his parents. Now, that just doesn't come out of the blue. He must have done some small crimes against his fellow humans by then. And the next step was going to oppress his parents and go on totally into an utter rebellious phase against the whole society. And Allah drew a line there, said, you cross the red line, that's it, you get the azab, you get your punishment. Now, why didn't Allah tell us what He has done so far? People don't become sociopaths and psychopaths overnight. The reason why Allah has not told us what He's done so far, because if He would have told it, people would have used it as an excuse to take the law in their own hands and kill other people who had done similar mistakes and say, well, Allah had told Khidr Islam to do it at so and so point, so we can do it too. So Allah did not give His past criminal history to us. Question number 4. The boy was made or meant to be evil. This was his taqdeer. And if he was meant to be this way, it's not his fault. Now, how are we meant to be? Allah Ta'ala in Quran says that He makes us all on the nature of Islam. Islam is peace. So we are all born on the good nature. And we know for every person Allah has made a good destiny, because for everyone there is a palace waiting in the highest portion of heaven, close to Allah Ta'ala, next to the prophets, every human being. So we are given the potential and we are given the choice to use that potential and be good. And we are given a free will to make a choice. Over time, we make our own choices and are responsible for the consequences. But we are born on the nature of Islam. Now, where is the proof? Everyone talks about it. But where is the proof that all babies are born on the nature of Islam? And what is the nature of Islam? How are all babies peaceful? Now, listen to the scientific reason and evidence behind it. Studies of babies have shown that every baby, from the day they are born, they become upset when they hear another infant crying, even if they're happy themselves. If they are feeding, having milk, or they are sleeping, or they're being tickled and they're laughing, as soon as they hear another baby cry, they become upset and they start crying. And this is from day one, even before they realize that they exist as a person. It's by the age of 1 year when they realize they exist as a person by themselves. This quality is called empathy. And Allah Ta'ala describes it as being born on the nature of Islam. And then explains it in Surah 13 as لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We stand up for the right thing. From an early age, as soon as the baby is born, he makes a stand, a moral stand, for the distress of other babies. And he starts crying if he hears someone crying. Scientists didn't even realize that أحسن تقويم. It was only in the late 19th century when a German doctor like Rudolf Hermann Lotze and philosophers like Robert Vischer, they came up with this term. They called it Einfühlung, which means feeling into the other person's feeling. Nowadays, we call it empathy. Now, what happens to this empathy when the baby gets older? When they are getting older, they start using something known as sympathetic distress and motor mimicry. I'll explain to you what that is. If a child hurts his finger, the other child will put his finger in his mouth and chew on it to see what pain feels like. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. You do not see this in other animals. You do not see this level of empathy. You do not see this level of sympathetic distress. You do not see this level of motor mimicry in other animals, especially not at such a young age. So when the baby is getting older, what happens? Now they develop comfort techniques. When they see another child crying, they use all the resources they have. They go, they reassure it, say, stop crying. Sometimes they give a helping hand to the child. Sometimes they cause distractions. They'll take their toy and give it to the child. Play with the toy, don't cry. They would even make direct pleas. They say, please don't cry, don't cry. That's what the babies would say to each other. Sometimes they'll take their mother or their auntie or their friend to them and say, look, baby crying, so help him, he's crying, I can't help him. Physical comforting, they would give them a hug and a kiss. Sometimes they'll give them a threat, stop crying or I'll hit you. So direct commands and threat. And you know what's the funny part of it? Most of the times they are the cause of that baby crying. When babies are playing together, they cause the other baby to cry and then suddenly their empathy awakens and they go and they try to console them. This is the nature Allah has created on. When we get older, we get empathic distress and empathic anger. Like you're looking at the news and you see that poor people are being shot by criminals and children are being killed and bombed and you get angry. Your blood pressure goes up. You say, I don't want to look at the news. I'm getting upset with it. What is that? لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. This is your empathy which Allah has given. Animals do not have it, not to the limit and the level we have. Many of the animals don't have it at all. There are animals who eat their own children after they are born. Especially if the offspring is weak, they won't let it survive. There are male animals, fathers, who come and they kill the offspring, their own baby, because they do not want him to compete with them. And many of the animals would go and kill other babies from other animals so their genes would prevail and the other animals' offspring would not be able to compete with them. And with time, some human beings also develop this characteristic. From empathy, they move to antipathy, which is the opposite of empathy. And they become the sociopaths or the psychopaths, we call. They do not feel any compassion for the other human being. And what does Quran say? لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. And then you degrade to the lowest of the lowest animals, like the animals who go and kill the babies, their own babies, other people's babies, they devour their children. All these things, you go even lower than that. You go and bomb, carpet bombing, killing people. You drop nuclear weapons and burn like 250,000 people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. None of the animals would do that. But we become asfala safilin. From the best of the creation, ahsan al-taqweem, we move to the worst. So this boy, this juvenile offender, he had betrayed his basic nature and he was moving way off the track. In fact, the best taqdeer, the best destiny which Allah had gifted him, he had totally abandoned it. Next question number 5. Al-Khidr knew that the next child which would be given to those parents would be a righteous child, would be a good child. No, it wasn't guaranteed. In ayah number 81, Allah Ta'ala says that there was hope that he would be closer to mercy. Wa akraba ruhma. Again, Allah Ta'ala would give him the free will. He would have the best environment available with good parents and good parenting skills. And there is hope that he would be closer to mercy compared to the other child. Nothing was guaranteed. Next question number 6. The death of the child is very distressing. People are not able to come to terms with it. And it is understandable. Musa alayhi salam couldn't come to terms with it. He at once objected to it and said, this is a grievous thing to do, to kill a boy. And he was assuming the boy is innocent. And what is this? This is empathy. This is empathic distress. This is empathic anger. And you and me, we also feel it. When you read this story first time, immediately you are hit by the empathy. You have empathic distress and empathic anger for that boy and his parents, both, on behalf of them. And this is the human nature. This is the لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. This is the best possible creation of Allah in you, which is coming out. Now, the death of this boy, this juvenile, has to be seen from four perspectives. The first one, number 1, is death itself. How do we see death? We see it as an end of life. But Allah Ta'ala describes it as a transition to another life and getting closer to Allah or getting back to Allah. It can be a relief for a human being, especially when life has become unbearable for them. I mean, we deal with end-of-life situations, palliative care. We know a patient might be in so much agony that life becomes torture for them and death is a huge relief. And we all have to die one day. Nobody's going to live forever. And mostly, death is fixed in taqdeer. Mostly. There are exceptions. It can be altered. We all say that the day and the time of death is fixed. Yes, but Allah can alter it. And there's an example. When Adam alayhi salam, he was created and he was shown the spirits of all his offsprings. He saw those souls, and among them there was one soul which was very bright, extremely bright. So Adam alayhi salam, he said, who is this soul? And they said, this is one of your great-great-great-grandchildren known as Dawood alayhi salam. He's going to be a prophet. And in Quran, Allah Ta'ala has used the word Khalifa fil arz for 2 people, Adam alayhi salam and Dawood alayhi salam. Adam alayhi salam just loved Dawood alayhi salam's soul. And he said, I want to give him a gift. and I want to give him 40 years of my life. So 40 years of his life were given to Dawud alayhi salam. So when the day of death came for Adam alayhi salam, the angel of death, Malak al-Maut, came and he said, your time is up, you have to go now. He said, no, I've got 40 more years, because he was told how long he's going to live. And he said, no, you bestowed those 40 years to Dawud alayhi salam, and his life was taken. So in this event, you say, life is extended for Dawud alayhi salam and shortened for Adam alayhi salam. So death, although most of the time is fixed in taqdeer, but it can be altered by Allah, especially by dua, if you request. Next thing, if any event in life is fixed, like death, a milestone, it is going to happen. No way you could change it. But the means to achieve it are still in our hands. So we can make our deaths a violent death. We can make our death with a lot of suffering by not looking after ourselves and putting ourselves in trouble. Or we can make it a peaceful death. It's up to us most of the time. So maybe for this boy, the time of death was fixed. If he would not have gone on the wrong path, maybe he would have died a non-violent natural cause death. But because he went on a wrong path, Allah sent his azab in the form of the Prophet to do qital for him. And in this case too, his death is not a punishment, it might be a relief. What do we do for juvenile offenders, especially juvenile criminals in today's world? We take them away from the society. We put them in correctional facilities and take them away. So Allah is taking him away from the society where he can cause violent crimes and he can cause a lot of death and destruction for other people. Now let's move away from death and analyze taqdeer again, because there's a lot of questions about taqdeer in this instance, and people keep asking that if he was meant to be bad, then it's not his fault. Some of the things in life in taqdeer are fixed, no doubt about that. But to achieve them is in our hands. There's a story of Hazrat Ali. Hazrat Ali went to a new city and he had his horse with him, and there was a saddle on the horse, and he had to go to pray. So what he did was he found a man and he said, would you look after my horse and my saddle, and I'll give you some money for it. And the man agreed to it. So Hazrat Ali went to pray. When he came back from prayer, the horse was still there, but the saddle was gone. So that guy, he stole the saddle and took it away. He couldn't take the horse. Maybe it was a bit too much. People recognized the horse belonged to Hazrat Ali. So Hazrat Ali went to the shops to buy a new saddle, and he saw that his very saddle, the one which was stolen, is now in a shop. So that guy has sold it to a shopkeeper. So he asked the shopkeeper, how much for the saddle? And the shopkeeper said, well, I'll be honest with you. A man just came to me and he sold it for 3 dirhams, 3 silver coins. So I'll give it to you for 3 silver coins. And Hazrat Ali, he said, I hold Allah witness that I was going to pay him 3 dirham for looking after the horse and the saddle. So the 3 dirham silver coins were destined for that man on that day. But how he achieved them was up to him. So maybe the death for this boy was destined on that day. But how it happened, it was in his hands, and he achieved it due to his own deeds. The fourth thing is, what if this boy would not have died? Let's assume that. If he would keep on living and would keep on doing whatever he's doing. Now, please be aware, this is not a standard case. This is an exceptional case. This is an unusual case in which a boy has been given the best possible parents, and yet he is showing early signs of antisocial personality, of psychopathic symptoms, conduct disorder, continuous disregard for his own and other people's safety. So this boy is all set to become a career criminal. There's a study done in America, almost close to 10,000 juvenile offenders, and they saw that among them, the habitual offenders were about 6%. These are the ones who keep on doing the wrong thing, like this boy was doing. He kept on going on the wrong path, and it was becoming inevitable that he is going to cause great oppression and great distress. So 6% only of that almost 10,000 juvenile offenders were chronic offenders. But 71% of the murders and 69% of the aggravated assaults were caused by them. This 6%, they accounted for almost 70% of murders and aggravated assaults. and most of them came from a very negative family environment. Now, this child is coming from an extremely positive family environment, and he is on the path of becoming a serial offender. Now, let's look into history. What happened to people who had this kind of behavior, who were juvenile offender and who were habitual juvenile offenders and criminals? Example number one, Genghis Khan. When he's 14 years old, he's a boy, just like this boy, teenager, he commits a murder. He's a juvenile. He commits a murder of his half-brother with the help of another brother. And he grows up to be one of the biggest genocidal personalities in the world. But with his own family, he was very loving and caring. For his mother, he had extreme amount of love. As I mentioned earlier, that in one of the raids on his camp, the enemies attacked and he had only one horse on which he could only take one person, and he took his mother, leaving his wife behind. And that wife was taken away by the enemies. And he had to spend 1 year before liberating his wife and bring her back. So to his mother, he was extremely kind. He drew a line when it came to his family, especially his parents. He drew a line there that would not be crossed. So all of his evil stopped at that line, which was his parents, his mother and his immediate family. He would never cross that line. His tyranny would end at his parents, whereas this boy's tyranny is starting from his parents. Next, Temur Lang or Temur Lane. We know him as Amir Temur. He had a small band of thieves when he was a boy. Same age as this boy, which we has mentioned in Surah KAHF. And he would go and steal with them. And in one of those adventures, he got shot with 2 arrows and got a fractured hip. And for the rest of his life, he walked with a limp. And they called him Temur Lang, the one with a limp. Never to his face. It's all written in the history books and stuff. To his face, everyone called him Amir Temur or Saifullah, the sword of Allah. But behind his back, they called him Temur Lang. Extremely hated personality. Why? He killed 5% of the world population, exclusively in the Muslim lands. 5% of the world population. Imagine, today we are 20%. The Muslims are 20% of the world population. You wipe out 5% of us, it's killing every 4th Muslim in the world. In today's numbers, it's 350 million people. That's 35 crore people in today's number he killed. Yet his tyranny and his cruelty also had a red line, and that was his parents. But this boy is starting where Temur Lang would stop. He is starting beyond that point. Imagine when he grows up and has the same opportunities like Genghis Khan and Temur Lang, what is he going to do? So by taking this child away from this world, Allah is not only being merciful to the rest of the world, especially his parents, but also being merciful to the child. Imagine how much Temur Lang and Genghis Khan were hated in their life, and this boy would even face more hatred from the world, and that would make him more bitter and would make him more criminal and make him worse in his actions. So these are all the main questions which have been raised. If you have any more questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I'm happy to answer them, inshallah. And if you think that the answers to these questions are not satisfactory, please do let me know. I'll be happy to re-answer them or attempt to re-answer them to my limited knowledge and understanding, inshallah ta'ala. Thank you very much for listening. Jazakallah khair. Please remember everyone in your prayers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.